Good afternoon, everybody. Jazari and Tommy here for another episode of Free Talk Friday, where we talk to you guys about all the weekly happenings that have taken place, as well as what we're working on to break down some information on what we have planned and all that good stuff, and hear your guys' voices. So this is a show where you can be a part of it. If you would like to join, in the description is the link for the stream. If you click it, it'll bring you right to us, and you can hop on if you would like and share your thoughts about whatever you want to share your thoughts about. How are you doing today, Tommy?
Pretty good. And yeah, if anybody wants to come on and share your thoughts, we don't want to be just two knuckleheads just throwing our opinions off of each other and being in a bubble. So I'd like to hear whatever you got. I mean, even if you don't want to talk about politics, just get on. It's Free Talk Friday. But I'm doing good. So I mean, you're gonna have to tell us how your day went because you had a different point of view than I did. So
Yeah, just really quick. I woke up from a nap a little bit ago,
yeah,
and that's why I texted you saying to go ahead and start without me because I had to run down and go get because I was gonna make coffee when I woke up, but then I realized I was out of grounds.
yeah.
So I walked down to the coffee shop down the street and got to pick me up because it's gonna be a long evening for me. I have a basketball game after this.
Oh, nice. Is your cousin playing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, yeah. So we were at the Capitol today for a little bit. It's kind of a big announcement. I believe it was Senator Calf. His interest, she's submitted a bill on behalf of the governor to restrict. Is it a sports and spaces bill? Is it that's
Yeah, it's a sports and spaces bill. And let me see if I'm going to pull it up. Gosh, I should have done a better job of preparing for this.
hey, it's Free Talk Friday. You get what you pay for, right? Right, folks.
No, I mean a better job of like reading up on this legislation and stuff. She just introduced it, but I also haven't been following up on just what's
Okay.
been introduced because what was it? The day before yesterday was a swearing in, and then yesterday some other stuff. And
Yeah.
now, oh my goodness, we are at LB. Okay, so it looks like we have 129 bills introduced already, and we have 10 days of bill introduction for the legislature. And then it looks like we have 9 resolutions, including a constitutional amendment. So,
Those
for
are always fun.
instance, yeah, so like for resolutions, for instance, like LR2 or LR1 was introduced by Speaker Arch, and it's to recognize, honor, and thank former President Carter for his service to the United States of America and the people of the world. So stuff like that, you know.
Mhm.
Constitutional amendment to constitutional amendments are actually like things to amend the Nebraska state constitution, and it looks like the two that have been there's 3 that have been introduced, and oh wow,
What's up?
huh. Let me actually pull this up. Let me pull this up so you guys see what I'm seeing.
Yeah, at some point I wanna share with you the tweet, the video of Calf talking about her bill. So
Sure. Okay, all right. So, like right here, these are the legislative resolutions. These are all the bills that have been introduced, and senators who have introduced them. So far, I see Spivey, new senator. I think Spivey. Gosh, my
you
screen has
can
just.
you can sort by primary introducer to see who it is. It used to be Blood used to be the one who just had 20 bills out the gate. She always had her bills ready to go.
Okay, so McKean. I think
My
I'm saying
daughter's
that right.
crying.
I don't know what's going on with my computer. It keeps freezing up. I honestly should have restarted it before we began. So I'm only seeing 2 new or 3. Dan Quick. I don't know if I count him as a new senator because he's been here already.
He's
You
been here
know,
before. Yeah.
yeah. So he's been here before. So I don't know if I count him as a new senator, but he's a returning a senator. But just a couple of new ones that have introduced legislation. But right here, so constitutional amendment to eliminate provisions relating to marriage and marriage licenses, and then constitutional amendment to recognize marriage of couples regardless of gender and race, and strike
Mm,
language regarding gender. And I think this is an effort to stay ahead of the curve, with the different things that are
yeah.
happening in the Supreme Court, people not knowing, what's going to be struck down and stuff. So introduced by Senator Michaela Kavanaugh. And then, these are like, cute ones. LR8, congratulate Eric Hall on achieving the rank of Eagle Scout. You know,
Yeah, resolutions. I'd like a
like,
resolution.
Feel good
make me
things.
feel good. And that gold
Yeah.
leaf print.
Hmm.
So I'm looking at Spivey. She's got 4 bills in so far.
I did have a chance to talk to her
Yeah.
briefly earlier. But yeah, what was I getting? Oh, okay. So this constitutional amendment was introduced by Senator Dorn, and it's to change legislative salaries to $30,000 annually. But
Yeah.
now, and
Good.
he's a it's obviously nonpartisan, but he is a GOP senator
It's got to be a
from,
Republican. Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Where
good.
is his?
The thing about that is people are like, why should we give these people a salary and higher salaries? You shouldn't give themselves a raise. And it's just like, I want to ask y'all, how many normal people do y'all think could work on $12,000 a year and no benefits? Like how,
Think of it
I
this
mean,
way.
yeah.
This way. This is a better way to think of it. Think of it as $1,000 a month or $500 every 2 weeks.
Hmm. Well,
Because I talk about people. I think people think more in terms of like, what do I make in a month or in 2 weeks? But go ahead.
Well, sure. All I'm trying to say is like, oh, the only people who could afford this are independently wealthy people. There's nobody in there who's a single mom or dad. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, 2 million people in Nebraska, there's got to be one single mother who would make a great senator. Come on. The odds are, right? So it's like if
Mhm.
you're only going to pay them $12,000 a year, the only people who can afford to be a senator are people that don't need money. So it's just like give people a
Yeah.
shot, normal people a shot, increase it. I say peg it to median income for Nebraska, so you never have to deal with it again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. So, anything that's underlined is what is to add, and then what is struck out is obviously to strike out. So it would change language to the legislature shall receive an annual salary of $30,000 during the term of his or her office. So, yeah, I need to go through this. Okay, what was I think? I wanted to go to. Why is my computer freezing up?
I mean, probably doing a lot, but I mean, there's a service on there that allows you to track bills. It'll email you and let you know when a bill has been referred to a committee or has been given a scheduled hearing date. It's a
Mhm.
free service. I think you can actually find it on this website. Um, but yeah, I mean, like the best way to stay informed is to get involved, and I think we're the only legislature in the country that allows every citizen to be able to testify on a bill. Doesn't matter your standing, you don't have to be an expert or anything like that. If there's a bill that interests you and you want to give a comment on it, you're allowed to go into a hearing room and give your comment, and they have to sit and listen to you. And it's something I definitely recommend doing at least a few times.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I guess, don't know that you can go and testify in front of legislature. So that was an interesting thing for me to learn. Uh, but yeah, and another thing too, it's that like sometimes laws get challenged in court, and that
Mhm.
testifying like record, that's a part of the record for the bill. So I think oftentimes they look back and see like, okay, who was proponents, who were opponents, what did they say, X, Y, Z, what was a running concern. They use it for like litigation purposes as well.
Mhm.
Uh, so oftentimes, hello Guillermo, why don't you hop on? Uh, so oftentimes, you see senators who might be against a bill. That's why like people be like, oh, why do they keep talking? Why are they going like why are they still talking about this on the floor and speaking about a bill that might pass anyways?
Mhm.
I think it's a part of a broader plan to try to like build the record to like because they know like their comments are going to be used in court if they plan on challenging it that way. You know, uh, okay. Oh, it's called the Stand with Women Act. Here we go. LB
Yeah, I
89.
was reading about it. I'll share a video with you in a minute. Can you give me a second? My dog is driving me crazy. I put up a gate, and now he's just sitting back there and whining. So I got to make sure he stays upstairs. I'll be back in just a minute.
Okay. So looking here, I mean, a big thing is kind of defining what is a man, what is a woman, and so some of these I'm reading here, right? Like 919, boy means an adolescent human male. Designate means to post signage at or near entrance of the restroom or locker room. So, female means a person whose biological reproductive system is organized around the production of ova. Female includes women and girl. I think it's
Oh
interesting.
God. Politicians trying to be scientific.
Well, I'm maybe I'm not seeing it, but male means
They are putting it to chromosomes, or
oh, here it is. Male means a person whose biological reproductive system is organized around the production of sperm.
that's okay.
Hey,
Uh,
Tommy, I am going to restart my computer because it's going to keep, it was doing this the other day. So I
yeah,
will be right back.
yeah. Hey, Guillermo, if you could help me out, you can jump on, and I don't have to be just a one man show. You can go ahead and go. Um, Otherwise, I'm going to sit here and just kind of talk about today. For anybody who didn't know, there was a press conference for at the governor's office at the state legislature. Senator Kathleen Kauth has entered or has submitted this bill for consideration that will be sent to a committee. And from what I understand, this bill is kind of a sports and spaces sort of thing to make sure that only biological males can go into bathrooms assigned for men or boys, and only biological females can go into bathrooms that are designated for women or girls. So, I mean, this is kind of something that's kind of normal when it comes to the culture war. Is we have to kind of like hype up a sort of big problem that doesn't actually exist in order to, I guess, throw some meat to the base or something like that. To me, I just consider it's one big distraction. Um, I have to read a part of the bill, but I think that one of the other provisions is also, making sure that uh, biological males cannot compete in the same high school sports or public school sports as biological males. And the thing about that is, we can have this debate. I don't think that there's anything off limits when it comes to Guillermo's coming to save the day. I'll just finish up my thought, Guillermo, and then we can start hearing from you. But so we can definitely have this debate. No debate is off limits, but I do think that it comes to a matter of priority. We estimate at best right now that there might be one transgender athlete in Nebraska public schools. There's never been more than 3 at a time in the last 10 years when they've had a policy when it comes to transgender athletes. And I'm just gonna say that, like I said, priorities, we have maybe 2 transgender athletes in high school sports, but we have 57,000 Nebraska children living in poverty. But that doesn't get as much fanfare as this. And I just think, yeah, take a step back and kind of look at that disparity and wonder, is this the most important thing that we have to be working on right now? But you are back, Jazari. How was the restart?
Okay, well, I'm not gonna just let
Oh,
it end there. So what was the last topic? Seems interesting. Transgender issues with the schools. I'm assuming it's going to
yeah.
be brought up by the state legislature. Well, it's awfully a gopher issue for independents and Democrats. I don't think that's something we need to focus on. Doesn't matter, even if you're a Republican. It's not something we should be focusing on. It's something that's not bothering anybody, and I don't think we should revisit something that's going to waste taxpayer money, taxpayer time, when we can be doing something for, like you said, the children. So even just bringing the subject up, I feel is detrimental in giving attention to what Republicans and highly conservative people are, because not all Republicans are super conservative, and I've met some of them. So I'm just saying we can't lose track of what we got to do. Especially with the work of the people. So I
Okay.
hope we can't focus on social issues.
Just to can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, just to clarify, I was in the press conference, as press in there, and this is not just for K through 12. This transcends past all of that to every government agency or entity. So maybe we'll probably bleed into the university as well. Every government institution, all of that, down to prison systems, all of that. Someone who is they deem through this law, but introduced bill as biologically male or biologically female, they won't be able to. You won't be able to have a trans woman in a women's cell, sharing a cell with a woman, and vice versa. You won't have a trans man sharing, a prison cell with a man. So it's like a blanket thing for the entire state. And one of the questions some of the reporters that were asking were like, how is this going to be enforced, especially in schools and things like that? And I think from what she said at the press conference, Senator Kauth, was the school will have to come up with consequences and things on how to deal with it. So I need to read through the bill in detail to see exactly like what the repercussions would be. This is going to be referred, I believe, to the government committee because I mean it goes into like how government like functions and operates. So
the thing that's sticking out to me so far, and I haven't read the full 7 pages, but it gets into this area of defining terms like male, female, man, woman, boy, girl, aligning it with biological sex.
And that's an effort to make it like ironclad.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, and I get it. I think if you're a proponent of transgender rights, you would say, yes, biological males and females, that's one thing, but then gender identity is, of course, its own thing. And if you think it was all about chromosomes, it's like we've only known about chromosomes since like 1905, but we've always had the concept of a man and a woman for thousands of years. So it's just like if you're going to say, well, we know what a man is and a woman is, it's chromosomes. It's like we've only known what chromosomes are for a little over 100 years. Let's have the discussion. And honestly, like I don't want to spend that much more time talking with somebody who believes what I believe. You know what I'm saying? Like I would like to hear somebody else's point of view that supports a bill like this and just kind of talk with them about it, But
intersex people have been existing since the dawn of time as well. And so have homosexual people as well. So there has been historical facts. I can't name them on the top of my head. I'm not an expert that, transgender people have existed. So I cannot deny that fact that we have always been here as well. And I will always fight for LGBT rights and my trans sisters' rights. But I knew this legislative session, this would be the main focus, and it's going to deter us from what we would really need to do. And it's unfortunate that we will have to fight this if it's a anti-proponent of, trans rights, if that's what we're discussing.
Sorry, I'm trying to find the bill again.
So I just came across something interesting. There's a provision in here called the severability clause that ensures the rest of the act can remain valid if any part is declared unconstitutional. So, I mean, they're kind of like getting ready in case it doesn't pass constitutional muster. That's really interesting.
She did say at the press conference, she was asked by a reporter, like, do you have the 33 votes necessary for this? And she said she did not, and she's continuously working on that.
Mm-hmm. Could you tell us about that though? Because originally it was going to be scheduled to be a press conference in the rotunda with the whole public being able to be a part of, but then they changed last minute. I think people were getting rumors of it as early as yesterday, but yes, they did change last minute, and they had the press conference in the governor's office inside the legislature, and only press was allowed, and guests. So can you tell us? You were allowed in the room. I was not. Several other people were not. Can you tell us how it went?
That room is so tiny. That room is so small.
I imagine.
It is probably like maybe 5 feet longer than the studio space that we're at.
Seriously.
See, you know what I'm saying? Like that room is small. That room is small. I thought like, and it's kind of trippy. Like when you look at like depth perception through the TV or the stuff, it looks like it's kind of spacious, right?
I thought it.
We was packed in there like sardines.
Yeah, you said you were sweating, right?
I was sweating. I was who like Chris Dunker was right behind me. Me and John Grivald from 1011 were literally like shoulder to shoulder, like standing there.
Nice.
And the Journal Star photographer was like literally smashed in there with us. And like we were like literally like it was tight.
Mhm.
The ceiling needs to be repainted. I started looking around. It's a cool space, but I'm just like, ooh, that tone of blue should be a little bit richer. And I love the tone of red and the white, but the curtains were pretty. So I'm sitting there like looking around. It's pretty cool. They have like a huge American flag against the back wall. It's a like that. That's what I think of like when I go in there. So I'm like looking around because it's a space I haven't been in before. So I'm like, looking around like, wow, this is like nice. But yeah, besides that, that's my only recommendation. Paint the blue on the ceiling a deeper blue, and I like a nice navy, and they'll set it off. Anyways, huh?
Go ahead. They didn't give you any indication as to why they made that change, right? Rumor has it that they heard that there might be some kind of security concerns.
I'm sure it was probably like recommended by the State Patrol. I think,
And I might usually at this point engage in conjecture, but like, I mean, I heard rumors that there was going to be an extreme demonstration. So, it makes sense. Like,
and it would make sense that like if something like that were to happen, especially for safety, the State Patrol would be like we should do this, especially if the governor is going to be there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
no, for sure.
Right. And after what happened at the tree lighting ceremony and all that type of stuff, for instance, it was the State Patrol who recommended the senators go out the back door, I believe, when they passed 574, like final reading, like, signed, sealed, delivered to the governor. I think they were the ones who recommended to like go out the back because, if I remember correctly. But so there were speakers, Senator Kathleen Kauth spoke. It was actually started by the governor. He had a funny joke. He was talking about like, oh, I don't want to talk about my injury. The horse's name is Jack, but we have a new name for him.
What's the name?
Jackass.
Oh, come on.
I'm like, that sounds like something ChatGPT wrote, but
somebody's bitter.
So, everyone.
Which horse are you talking about? The two-legged or the
four-legged?
Because he got bucked off a horse.
Yeah, he had to spend Christmas in the hospital.
Yeah.
But have you ever seen a two-legged horse?
I know this is a joke I've heard before, right? Is this a joke I've heard before? What's a two-legged horse, Guillermo?
I don't know. What has two legs and can walk straight up?
A human?
Bingo.
Maybe.
Took you a while.
No, I was like thinking, is this a dirty joke? Like,
yeah, it sounds familiar.
No, it wasn't. It's not. None of it was dirty, but thank you though.
All right.
Okay, so hold on. Sorry, this AI camera is like.
Yeah, I turned my tracking off. Or is that what you're having a problem with?
Yeah, because like I'm talking with my hands and my hands is triggering it.
I see.
Okay, so the governor opened it up, had some remarks, talked about the bill and XYZ about how like, the talking points of protecting women and girls and his granddaughters and all that. Yeah. And then turn it over to Senator Kathleen Kauth. And, she spoke, she talked a little bit about the bill and all this stuff, and then how she had some speakers. She had two student athletes. The first one played softball. She gave a speech talking about how, like, just the talking points. You guys know the talking points. Then a volleyball player. Yeah, she was tall. She seems like she's probably a beast on the court, but she was talking too about all of that. And, she mentioned something interesting that, some of us talked about afterward is she was talking about how she hates the separation of church and state. And she's like, without our God, who are we? And take it how you will. Shared some stuff about that.
Scared.
And how,
taking it scared.
Huh?
Oh, very scared. Yeah. You said take it as you will. Yeah. Very scared about it.
Well, I mean, like, take, like, what she means, like, but
yeah, it's scary.
So she talked about this is common sense legislation and that it shouldn't even be a thing that has to be introduced. the talking points that we've all heard that they've been saying. And then the third person to go was not a student athlete, but she talked about how her sorority had let in a trans woman, and that was the whole thing. Come to find out after the fact that that happened in Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
So she went to school in Wyoming and then transferred here. Did not say, like, I don't think people know what school she's at now, but she shared about that experience and went through, talking points too. And then the third or the fourth person is actually a business owner who owns XXXY Apparel out of Colorado. And she got up there. She's like, look, I was always a lifelong Democrat. I'm not a conservative, but things changed after COVID in California and XYZ. So she moved from California to Denver, but came here to be a part of this. So some of these folks aren't even like from here. Like they came in to speak on this, and endorse it publicly.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very interesting.
That's normal.
One question before you continue, because I'm really interested in your
Mhm.
story, Jazari. Is the legislative session back in order? I know.
We back.
2 days
All
ago.
right.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody told me because I wanted to see that, and that's not fun.
Yeah, the
I
place
saw-
I usually watch. Go ahead.
No, I saw the inauguration of senators. That I did, but I didn't know we had like the next day we were gonna have like bills.
Yeah, immediately
I would've-
following, it's 10 days of bill introduction.
How unfortunate.
Mhm. I mean, it goes quick. Like, you can't do anything until you're sworn in. That's why you're a senator elect. And then right after that, it's like, so you kind of have to have like your bills and everything drafted before you come in, which can be hard if you're like new coming into it, right? Like, so I think that's where you kind of like do your research and reach out to some folks on like, hey, like, how do I craft this legislation? Like, what do I do? XYZ, and there's like an onboarding thing that they go through, like orientation, where I'm sure they get their headshots taken, all that kind of like good stuff. But I mean, some staffers didn't get access to email like until today.
No, I have access to some stuff. I just, I need to look on the Nebraska legislative website. That's my problem. You know when the next legislative session is by chance? Because I'm trying to save time.
Monday, I believe.
Monday.
So yeah, Nebraska Examiner had an interesting story about how the Republicans have flexed their muscle with committee assignments. So pretty much kicked off some pretty high ranking Democrats off of some committees and replaced them with other. Is my input volume? Is that better?
It just changed considerably. Try again.
Is it louder now?
That sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good.
Can you hear the background noise?
No.
Okay, so that means it's doing its job. Replace some high-ranking Democrats with, newer incoming freshmen. So Danielle Conrad was kicked off of government, as well as Jane Raybould. And Danielle Conrad's interesting because she served 8 years prior. So at this point, she has 10 years deep in the legislature between the times that she has served. And she was on education and stuff, and they took her off of government. And, some of these legislations, like this LB 89, is going to go through government because it deals with, the government and how state government operates. Yeah, so pretty much I was talking to some senators, and it was kind of one of those things to where it's like, whatever they want to happen is going to be able to happen because they have a majority on all the committees, I guess. And I think it's going to be an interesting session. It's going to be interesting to see how things pan out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you want to watch a clip of Calth talking about her bill, or?
Yeah. Did you read my chat in the private chat?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just giving her a clip from.
Oh, I sorry, I hid Guillermo.
Business owned. I am so very proud to be able to introduce the Stand With Women Act. It is critically important that we actually make this stand. This act will cover everything the state is in charge of. That means our prison systems, That means our Department of Economic Development. That means our DHHS. That means all of our academics, all the way up through post-secondary. We have to be able to say that a woman is a woman and a man is a man, and there should be some places where each sex has privacy. And if we have designated something as, say, a women business-owned grant, we shouldn't have men be able to decide to be women and take that money. We shouldn't have men be able to decide to play a sport and take a scholarship or to have an injury to a player. This is common sense. It astounds me that I have to introduce this bill. But there are at least 20 states across the country who have said, oh no, we fully think that anybody who wants to change their sex, which is a physical impossibility, can do it. If you think you're a woman, you sure are, and we'll embrace them all the way. That is not fair to anyone who is a woman. It's also not fair to men. So I am so very grateful. First of all, look at this crowd. I am so blessed and proud to have all of these senators standing behind me, behind this bill, and I'll let you know there are many more on the floor who actually couldn't come to the press conference because they're trying to make sure that there are no shenanigans on the floor of the legislature. So they are here with us in spirit. But I am so grateful for them for standing up with me and standing up for women. And I'm blown away by the courage of these young ladies. So we have Jordy Ball, Becca Alec, and this is Hannah Holtmeyer, and Hannah's going to speak to you a little bit about her experience when her sorority invited a man into a sorority. And then finally, our final speaker will be Jennifer Say, and she founded XXXY Athletics. It is the only sports apparel company that actually supports women being.
Okay.
Oh, Riley Gaines boosted that?
Yeah, it's a quote tweet from Riley Gaines. So, I mean, I don't see any tweets maybe for this athlete who spoke, but like, this sorority sister who spoke, what was her story?
Kind of just that, about how they, spoke out against it and, went about trying to get that person out, and that was kind of it. A lot of it was.
Did this person ever accost them? Were they ever harassed or anything like that? This transgender woman? Did they ever harass this person who spoke?
I don't remember her talking about that. I think it's just they didn't feel comfortable and they just.
I mean, okay, so one of the things I want to immediately respond to is like she said something about how you can change your sex, which is impossible. Yeah, it's impossible to change your sex. Nobody's saying you can change your sex. They used to use terminology like transvestite or transsexual. They don't say that anymore. Why? Because we know you can't change your chromosomes. Nobody is saying we are changing our sex. Nobody is saying that biological male or female aren't like two like facts. But it's just like when she says what makes a man and what makes a woman, it's just like, well, what makes a woman a woman? What is a woman? Right? And it's just like, all right, let me hear your definition. It's two XX chromosomes. It's like, no, that's biological sex. So I can only tell you what I think on this topic. And I would love to be able to have this conversation with somebody who disagrees with me.
See, okay, sorry to cut you off, but that's like where I'm like looking like the Oxford Dictionary. A noun, an adult female human being.
I mean,
I don't look at dictionaries for.
But I'm trying to find like I'm trying to find, like what you said. I'm just trying to find. Are we going off of dictionary definition? Are we going off of medicinal definition?
No, I mean, if you were to ask the question, is there a difference between gender and sex? Yes, there is. My wife has two X chromosomes. That doesn't mean she's going to be wearing a bunch of makeup on high heels and, a skirt or anything like that. She's a tomboy. Everybody knows what a tomboy is. It used to not be a big problem. But now we're all suddenly worried about what makes a woman and what makes a man a man. You know what I'm saying? Gender and sex are not the same thing. Does that make any sense?
I'm going to be honest with everybody. This is a lot for me. Like, this is all new to me. Like, in the last, couple of years. Like, I'm not like.
I'm used to it. I grew around drag queens and transgender people, so they're just regular people to me. They just happen to be, intersex people, and that's where I differ with everybody. They're just intersex, and maybe people would understand the community better if we try to define it somewhat easier for them. But that's our problem as a community, and that's something LGBT community has to discuss as a whole in Nebraska. And we're not really having those discussions. So it's not my
Yeah.
space either. It's a trans space.
Mm-hmm. And then just to take a step back, let's remember how many kids are really having to deal with this versus how many kids are having to deal with poverty and food insecurity. And it's just like, I wish that got the fanfare, and I mean, it's even taking up my thoughts too. And I just really wish that I could think and focus more on economic issues.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think that that okay. So that's the thing. So a reporter did ask her, is this an important enough thing to draft legislation, ironclad legislation on? Like, is this that big of an issue that it needs to be addressed in this way? And I mean, you had some people kind of like scoff at him, had people kind of be like, oh, like, really? Like, try to like downplay his question. But I mean, like, it was a valid question. It's just like, do you think that this is worth the time, effort, money to put into legislation is kind of essentially what I think he was saying. And Senator Kauth was like, one instance is too many. One instance is too many,
But not for poverty. That doesn't apply to poverty.
Yeah. And that could be like another question. Maybe I could ask her that the next time I see her. It's, I mean, like we talk about protecting children and things like that.
Maybe you'll see me at the Capitol. I would really like to comment on the bill, but it's probably over now. You can't comment.
Well, no, they haven't had a committee hearing.
They haven't had committee hearings yet.
This was just a press
conference. All right.
Right. Yeah. And I used to like testifying, but in the end it's like I did it. And are you messing around with your audio?
Yeah, because it keeps like dropping.
So I mean, all I'm saying is just like,
hey, Mercedes, hop on. We want to get your thoughts
to.
on the legislature if you've been following along. But like that's don't ask. I'm sad and sassy. LMFAO. They were a good music group. LMFAO. I wonder what I was researching several months ago. What happened to them?
Did you know there was an uncle? There was an uncle nephew duo.
They were an uncle nephew duo. I thought they were just like
didn't they
friends.
seem the same age? Yeah, no, they were uncle nephew if I remember correctly.
Party Rock is in the house tonight. Hey,
I mean,
everybody, let's give me 2010 vibes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. See, the problem is they kind of like typecasted themselves because like every song has to be about partying. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like you can't have a deep, thoughtful song about being morose or a tough period in your life. It's just got to be about partying and partying and partying.
I mean, that's the same thing like Flow Rider. Oh my gosh, Wild Ones is in my top 5 albums ever.
Can I admit something?
Yeah.
It took me a very long time to realize he was doing a play on Florida.
It's okay.
Like years. And I was just, oh yeah, Flow Rider, whatever. So yeah, at least I got there.
Off the top of my head, Flow Rider, in no particular order, these are one of the 5 best albums that I've enjoyed. Wild Ones, Lemonade, Beyonce, that album was fire. I will say Lemonade and Cowboy Carter. Like I'll just put those in.
You can if you're gonna introduce music, eventually you're gonna start sampling it on here because I need to know what these songs are because I'm terrible at music.
Oh, we might get a copy.
I gotta hear it. I gotta hear it. Start it. Well,
what else? Starboy, The Weeknd. Amazing. That album.
I'm familiar, but don't know what the hell it
is. Starboy? I'm a Starboy.
No, we'll get to it. Don't. We don't own the rights to that, whatever he's singing over there.
Oh, you can do a cover. You can do your own cover. See, I think when it comes to hip hop, one of my favorite albums was Kid Cudi's "Man on the Moon," I believe it was. "Man on the Moon," The End of Day. It's a great album. Did you ever listen to that one?
Mm-mm.
It's a good one.
Oh, one of my favorite artists ever, Luke Christopher. What was that album?
It's got 2 first names. Well, anyways, I mean, was the press conference, did they have any other, highlights? Like, I mean, I guess they're kind of trying to, it sounds to me like they're very fearful of having their space invaded, but did anybody give like a story of being attacked by a transgender woman or anything like that? Was there, they were just worried about it?
Sorry, Tomorrow Forever 2017, Luke Christopher. Check it out. I love all his songs. Anyways, no, from what I gathered, they party rocked, said sorry for party rock, and disappeared.
That is true.
Oh,
They actually had a falling out. They don't like each other.
Seriously? Well, they
Yeah,
need to get
something like
over that
that.
and put out a new album because, yeah.
I feel like you can party for only so much, man. For it's
No, they did not really talk about personally having their spaces invaded or personal stories. I think it just talked a lot about the uncomfortableness.
Mhm.
From what I'm recalling, I don't remember them talking about like a personal situation that has happened to them. Besides, the lady who owns the apparel company, she talked about how did Guillermo leave?
Oh, it might have.
She talked about how during her time as an elite gymnast, she faced a lot of like harassment and other stuff. She didn't go into specifics, but she ended up, kind of sharing that she went through something.
Okay.
And that was kind of it. But tell me about what happened, because it was immediately as the governor
Yeah,
got
it
to
was
the
out in the.
podium, like, what happened out there?
So, I mean, I guess that it was just kind of an organic thing, but I was chilling out in the rotunda because I didn't want to stand in that cramped hallway right outside of that office. So I started hearing like just this sporadic and very loud chanting. I can't remember what they were saying. I didn't really hear it. But I decided to go from the rotunda to check out the hallway to make sure everything was all right, and some curiosity. But they were chanting something, and then the police told them to shut up. And one protester was like, "What rule is there that says I have to shut up?" And
Is that who I
any
think it is?
I know, but
Oh.
then the cop, he cited the rule perfectly. And they were like, "Oh, well, okay, then I guess we'll shut up." And it was just like, vertical leadership. I support you. Hierarchical structure. Let's lead this movement. Have some direction. Can't be horizontal thing. This is like, if you're going to chant. And if you're not, then don't. You didn't need to put yourself in a position where they would call your bluff, man. But I get it. They probably didn't have bail support or legal aid. But I mean, that was about the extent of it. Is most everyone there was told to be quiet, and they did so. And then maybe 3 people didn't follow that. I mean, they waited just a little bit to start chanting again, and then they were escorted out by the cops. Now, I'll say, hell yeah. I mean, they stuck with it. They went in there with a plan, and I'm sure that they had planned for themselves when it came to like the aftermath, but they followed all instructions. They didn't try to get into it physically with the police. They just kept chanting as the police like took them out. And it's like, yeah, bravo. That's how you do it, But I mean, that was about it. There was an individual who was supposed to be there who was allegedly going to have some form of extreme demonstration or something like that. But that person was arrested as they arrived to the Capitol. I tried looking into it. I keep on getting mixed messages on it of why this person was apprehended and sent to county. But for the most part, it was a pretty uneventful event. You had 1 or 2 people who were kind of like trying to, I guess, chide the cops. But I mean, it was kind of meek, But for the most part, like, you know, people just stood around and just kind of let it go. Went on. So yeah, only 3 arrests or detentions, maybe not even arrests.
Yeah, you know, the girl, the volleyball player that says she doesn't like the separation of church and state, she talked about how, you know, because obviously um, the protest, the sound or whatever, bled into the room, and she was like, you know, uh, you're this close to someone in power, and the first thing you do is to just have yourself filled with such hate and rage and start yelling obscenities and stuff. I mean, I'm paraphrasing what she said, but essentially what she said is you guys had the chance to say something and you chose to say something violent and hateful, and make these comments like
The chanting? She said the chanting was violent and hateful.
Yeah.
I don't even really know what they chanted. I think they were chanting something about trans people belong or something like that.
Yeah,
see, that's exactly my point. Is the people in power, the conservatives, are just going to take. I mean, nonviolent direct action is the way you got to do it. I mean, but you know that's pretty ridiculous to call that violent. I mean, they behaved as soon as they were told to, and they weren't chanting anything about these people. I don't think. Like I didn't hear the chant. So I mean, I got there by the time it was dying down. So maybe they did say something, and I just don't know about it. But you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, and that's why nonviolent action is kind of the only go-to on this one. You know, when you're in the deep minority when it comes to legislative power.
And that's the thing that I was thinking about. I'm just like, you know, when you're working, like you said, in the minority, when you're working in a deficit, there's kind of a way that you have to go about getting things done. And this is, I don't know, you know, I'm not rooting one way or the other. I'm just saying, like, I think there's a better process. So I don't know. I mean, then again, it's like, if they wanted to meet with the governor, would the governor take that meeting? You know what I'm saying? Like, if they wanted to reach out to Senator Kathleen House, would she take that meeting?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like, is it going to be a thing to where one side is just going to flex all the power that they have and stop at nothing, or really try to? And so this is interesting because this is what I heard in 2023 when all that stuff was going on. You know, they had Senator Kavanaugh, John Kavanaugh, and Senator Duncan were having meetings with Senator Kaus. And she told a reporter at the World Herald that they were essentially just listening sessions. And John Kavanaugh got on the mic. He's like, well, I thought we were having these conversations, you know, and negotiations in good faith. And now I read in the paper that they were actually listening sessions. You know, like, this is not what we thought it was. And maybe like what's going on. And, you know, I'm just very, it's just fascinating to see all of this. And
when it comes to like whether, you know, the governor or Calth would have a meeting with, you know, the people on the trans right movement, like they're only going to do it if they have to, right? And they would only have to do it as if the moderates would look at them rejecting a meeting poorly, right? I mean, you really the people that you got to convince aren't the senators, it's the voters, it's moderates. You got to get them on their side. You got a coalition build. And until the governor or the states or state senators like feel, you know, that sort of pressure, they just have no reason to actually listen to you. And there was nobody was being extreme or anything today. Like there were 3 people that I would have called protesters because they saw it to the end. And there were some people there that I've seen do extreme demonstrations in the past, but nobody was being extreme. But that one little chant, they took that one little chant and they were like, look, they're being so violent and hateful. And it's just like,
yeah, I think
we're at a position. Go ahead.
Continue your thought. I interrupted.
I'll finish my thought. We're at a position right now where I feel like we aren't able to communicate well enough to let people know that those people are making a mountain out of a molehill. You know, I mean, remember, moderates don't know a lot about these people, like, and you got to be able to like figure out how to communicate with moderate people, and you got a coalition build, and you got to get to a point where the governor cannot ignore you. But if you know, if you're doing something violent, the governor does not have to acknowledge you. Not only that, you give him fuel for the fire. So yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry, I disagree with that, because anything we do is going to add fuel to the fire, and that's what got us in trouble the first time. That's why we have Donald Trump, and I'm not going to start with the federal and go to the state. That's why we are, as Democrats, where we are. People see us as weak and like we can be thrown around like a volleyball. No, It's all right. And that's the problem we're having. That's my opinion, because I've been in the Democratic Party and in Democratic leadership.
Sure. There was an allegation that one of the demonstrators was arrested prematurely or early before it because she spit in the face of a cop. Just an allegation. I've tried looking into it. I couldn't verify anything like that. But I just got to ask you, do you think civil rights leaders would have spit in the face of cops? Do you think they would have succeeded in what their goals were?
Well, that's woman's personal choice, and I don't speak for her. And if she represents the cause, and you know, she shot herself in the foot and that cause in the foot, and I don't represent her. This is what I see. And I can't speak for her, but I don't think it's right. And I don't think anybody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. So if she did do that, there is consequences to that. I don't think people should be spat on.
And I just want to reiterate, like, that's an allegation. I couldn't verify it, even though some people were very certain that's what happened. I even looked up some records, and I still couldn't figure out what exactly happened. I just got a vague piece of information concerning an arrest warrant. But, you know, if something like that happens, it's like there is a certain point where you are pushing yourself back. You're pushing your movement back. You know, it takes very strategic planning and well thought out strategy in order to actually move your movement forward. And I'm not saying that like because, you know, it's just a feeling, like that's what's happened in the past. That thought's over.
No, you're fine. I agree with some of it. I mean, I don't think we should be spitting on people. But that's just my opinion, my personal political opinion. If people want to go spitting on people, they know they can do that, but there's consequences to their actions.
Sure.
Yeah, that's kind of gross.
Like I said, I heard it at the time, people that were close with this individual, but then when I went home and actually tried to look into it and verify it, the only thing I could see was a warrant that had a very vague description of why the warrant was issued. I didn't see anything about assaulting a cop. I saw something about, it was something about obstructing or a police officer or something like that. But again, like I couldn't find any good information on that, even though these were essentially her friends who were telling me this. But yeah, I mean, I think that's just an example. Like, of course, be civil disobedient, but just don't resort to violence. And remember, violence doesn't have to be physical to be violence. Violence can be non-physical.
Sorry, let me pull this article that I'm reading, because I'm trying to understand what had happened here. I'm not entirely sure what the 2nd District Caucus is, but part of the contention comes 2 days after the 2nd District Caucus met in Omaha, and progressives secured all 4 spots on the Committee of Committees, as well as 2 coveted spots on the Executive Board, which manages the day-to-day operations of the legislative branch. That meant kicking off Republican State Senators Brad Von Gillern of Omaha from the Committee of Committees and Merv Ralston from the Executive Board. He said, the most intentionally partisan thing I've experienced since I was sworn in 2 years ago, and an attack on the nonpartisan, but it's typically wave the flag harder than anyone else.
One moment. So the second,
I agree with him. The Republicans had a conjunction of function, and it just crashed. And literally, they revamped their whole leadership, and it's been a mess since then, because MAGA supporters ousted old Republican heads. It's been a mess.
Can you send me this article? But just to let you know, the 2nd congressional district is what they're referring to. Is all the senators that reside within.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But looking here at the numbers, the Republicans have an 8-5 majority.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, am I reading this?
Committee on Committees. Let's see. So I see 1D, 2D, 3D. And
Why am I not?
I've only seen 4, but I can't really see.
This was the proposed one. So let me.
What's the title of the article?
Here, I'll send it to you right now.
Okay. Well, I mean, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. They have a majority of the legislature.
It is a big deal. Some Republicans might fracture with Democrats if it came down to certain bills.
Oh, I see what you mean.
When was this published? Yesterday? Look, listen, at the end of the day, it seems like they have a majority on every single thing except obviously the Urban Affairs Committee. So Democrats
Yes.
have a 1-seat majority.
So, but they can play those cards. If I don't get what I want, especially with committee leaders and leadership, then I'm going to side with Democrats on such and such issue. And that's when it becomes a problem.
So my whole thing too is that, like, essentially I was talking to a Democratic senator today and like all the guardrails are off. I mean, they can filibuster, but they can't stop. Like, how can they stop anything the other side wants? They can force anything out of committee, and if they get all 33 Republicans, they don't need any type of Democratic support to pass anything.
Yeah.
And obviously the governor is going to sign it. And if the governor doesn't sign it, they still have a majority to override.
Well, I mean, 33 is a powerful number. It is, but I mean, you have to make sure all 33 stay in lockstep, and you're going to hit some issues where, I mean, you're not going to see them be 100% on everything.
I mean, some of the big things too, I would say more of the culture war stuff. I think that, like, they're going to, like, vote for it, especially those who have an election coming up next year.
Yeah.
You know, like,
they got to feed their base. You're right, Design. Yeah.
So I guess we'll see how it all plays out.
I mean, yeah, it sucks that we don't have, or Democrats don't have 17 seats, that one party has a supermajority, which
they have to try harder. And, it doesn't help when they ignored certain leadership in certain districts and were warned several times. And as elections are over, so I'm very public about it. They know how I feel. They know they effed up a little bit when they ignored certain candidates. They know they did that, but they didn't have the funding. I get them on that.
So one of the things that, this might sound great if you're a Republican voter, but one of the things that I've come to find is sometimes a party in the majority actually wants there to be a filibuster, because then they have an excuse, right?
Because then what?
Then they have an excuse. Oh, I couldn't pass this bill you really wanted because, we couldn't beat the filibuster. When in reality, everybody knows that you can beat the filibuster with a simple majority. It's called nuking the filibuster. It's called appealing the ruling of the chair. Like, there's nothing that stops them from passing anything with just 25 votes. But I mean, it's a very convenient thing for the party in charge. There are things that those senators don't actually want to pass. There are plenty of those 33 senators who don't care about this, that know that's not a problem and it's not the hill they want to die on, but they might be bullied into supporting it. But here's the thing. They don't have to worry about that if they can go, look, the Democrats blocked this, but now they can't. Now they don't have that excuse. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because
the thing is everybody in the legislature knows that the filibuster is just a handshake agreement, right? You can violate it at any point. You can just say, as soon as the chair rules that they haven't hit 33 votes for cloture. Somebody can raise a point of order and appeal the ruling from the chair, and then if 25 people vote against the chair's ruling, the thing passes. And nobody likes talking about that because it's like, well, what if they start doing that? It's like they could have done it from the start. Like, let's be honest here. The filibuster is a handshake agreement that could go away like that. But
Look,
why doesn't it? Why doesn't it? Because it's convenient. They don't have to deliver on everything they promise. And now they do. So
at the end of the day, too, the thing that I realize, it's like, it's the voters, right? Like, it's the voters. It's people who are running for different seats. You know, if you want, like, it just comes down to the voters, right? So, like, if somebody is like if somebody's running for legislature, right, it's your due diligence to look and see who's running in your district and to turn out and vote and things like that and read up on like what this could do. I don't know if we've gotten into it about that, but like, I don't think it's. I mean, you can only do so much, right? Like, you can run for office, you can campaign, but if people like tune it out or intentionally avoid it, like, what else can you do?
people aren't tuning it out and they're not intentionally avoiding it. Let me ask you, did you know everything about that was on your ballot? You know, every race, you know, all those people, you know, everything about them or anything about all of
Yeah,
them?
because I'm a political nerd. So like,
You knew,
I'm
so
not
you
the
mean
right.
to tell me for those
Uh-huh.
retention elections, you knew everything about those judges?
Huh?
You knew which ones should be retained and which ones shouldn't be. You knew their careers.
I didn't. I abstained. That's why I abstained.
Yeah,
If I don't
I
know
don't.
nothing about them, I did not vote. I said, no, hell no.
Okay,
Yeah, I
maybe
don't
not the
vote.
judges, but I'm talking like, okay, so I'm talking about like actual like legislative power, those people.
But now you're picking and choosing, Jazari. The voters got to know. They have a
Okay,
responsibility to know,
okay, but what I'm saying
right?
is like when we talk about people who are making laws, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about, okay, let me reframe. I'm talking about people who are making laws, people who want to go to
Okay.
the US Senate, people who want to go to the US House of Representatives, people who want to be state senators, people who want to be governor, who want to be city council, who want to be mayors. I'm talking about the people who are actually going to govern everyday life in your.
Sorry, I
Those
sent
who I'm
that fire
talking
truck
about.
and interrupt you.
Yeah, I'm not talking about judges and all this type of stuff because
Well, now you're
we're
picking and choosing, though. They're on the ballot. You should know.
Tommy, I just said I'm talking specifically about people who are running. I said
Okay.
at the beginning, I
But
said if somebody is running for office and they're campaigning and they're out there and you choose not to,
you know my
because
thing
then
about retention elections, right?
I,
You know
I
I'm against
understand
them
where
and
you're
don't want
coming,
them.
Jazari. I
Tommy,
understand where
I'm
you're
not.
coming from. And
You keep going back to judges. I'm
you
not
can
talking about
only
judges.
do so much. I understand we can, as candidates, you can only do so much. But what I've noticed with Democrats, we get into our own political bubble and we think everything's safe and okay and wonderful because we have support from a group. But it's not all right, okay, and wonderful. We need to be out there. And the problem is, we didn't have the manpower and we didn't really get yokel with people who really know their town. We didn't really invest in that. So I can't say it's enough that we or independents either. It's hard. It's really hard, and I understand where you're coming from, Jazari.
Like,
Sometimes they're not going to hear that message. They're not.
and the thing is, it's like, how many times have you heard people that then voter turnout would be higher than what it is? You mean to tell me, like, when it comes to like state senate races or things like that, especially like midterms, and people are going to have those races that are not running with the presidential election, voter turnout. So it's just like some people just tune it out because then why didn't they show up to vote? Unless there's
So
something
the
else.
point I'm trying to make is it's actually incredibly hard to be an informed voter, Jazari. It's very difficult to be informed. All the information is not in one place, and you have to go to it. You know, it's like, well, I got to go to this
Okay,
website
but
to
what
learn
I'm
about this person. I got to go to this website. Got to read this news article. All this other stuff.
okay, let's look at it this way. Let's say somebody is running for legislature and they knock all of these doors. They hit every single door. They knock all the doors in
Mhm.
the district because in some districts that's possible. It's possible to knock on every single door,
I
right?
don't think it is. There's something like 20,000 homes in every district on average.
But I'm saying if you have door knockers and you have things and you're sending out mailers, you're sending out all this stuff and you're trying your hardest to reach people, you know, the newspapers do voter guides and all these types of things. obviously everything could be better. Everything could be better. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm also saying it's just like some people put out signs and all that type of stuff in neighborhoods, right? So you mean to tell me there's still people who are like, oh, I didn't know there was an election.
No. They know there's
Yes,
an election.
yes.
No, they
Do you
know
get
there's
what?
an election. They just
Yes,
No.
can't
I do.
figure
There
it out.
is. There is people. No, there is people out there that do not like news. Believe me, you'd be surprised when I've knocked door to door. I've been door to door. I volunteer. It's like, I didn't know there was an election. I didn't know this was happening. I didn't know this law was passing. I didn't even know what legislature I was. Oh, this is my first time voting. So it does happen. I'm not saying that's the like a big chunk, but it does happen.
I'm not saying it
So-
doesn't happen. Go ahead.
So what I'm getting at is like, I mean, even with like especially like special elections, right? Midterm, like the midterms have way smaller turnout than presidential election because the presidential election like drives so much interest. I think it's kind of hard to not know there's an election during a presidential election. But I mean, like even like look at the numbers with midterm elections, people whose cycles don't run on presidential elections. So it's a whole thing. Even like city municipal races, like mayoral races, like how do we have all of these voters and like it's just a fraction of a fraction that turn out to vote? So, and I can't tell you how many times like I've heard people say, oh, I ignore politics, I hate politics, I don't care about politics. Don't make that face, because I'm telling you, I've actually heard it. I've heard
It's the
people tell me.
truth.
You've
The
heard
maintenance
it,
guy who
like,
came to
It's
my
the
apartment
truth.
one day said, "Oh, I ignore politics. I don't care about it."
Sure.
I know that's
mean,
hard for you to
Because
wrap
they
your mind around, Tommy, but
it's
it's
not
true.
hard for me to wrap my mind around it. It's just like people, political science
deliver and they promise us so much and they never deliver. People are
would just
tired. They want action. They want solutions. This is why
So-
we lose as Democrats. This is
So
why
all
we
I'm
lose.
saying-
You hit it right on the nail.
All I'm saying is I don't know. At some point it's kind of just like from what I'm getting your vibe, Tommy, like it's never ever the voters' fault for not making sure they're informed on who's running for their local races.
okay. If that's what if you think it's the voters' fault and that's what your belief is, it's never going to amount to any kind of change.
Well, I'm
Because,
saying that
believe it or
they're
not.
So
Go-
whose
no, go
fault
ahead.
is it? Is it all on the candidate?
It's-
Is it all on the party? At what point?
It's on the
like
party.
you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink, right? Like if you
But I'm
go and
saying you're
knock
not
on-
even leading a horse to water. You're not even doing that.
I gave you
because-
the example of like door knocking and things.
I don't want to use anecdotal examples. I want to use real world information. And people, believe it or not, they are in voter education. There are experts that have studied this for years. Here's the thing: voting is an information dense thing. People are busy. You have to go to how many different sources to figure out something, and it's like, oh, I'm glad somebody knocks your door or gives you a pamphlet or you see a yard sign, but that doesn't mean you know anything about those people. You need
See,
a lot
okay,
of
that doesn't make
information.
sense. You mean to tell me a candidate knocks on your door, hands you a pamphlet, introduces themselves, tells you their website, tells you what they're about. You're still going to say, "Oh, well, I still don't know anything about this person." At that
I
point,
didn't
it's
say
on
I
you.
didn't know anything about this person, but I only know what
No,
they
that's what
told
you
me.
just said. But that's what I'm saying. So if somebody makes contact, gives you the information, hey, this is my
gives
website.
me the information about themselves. And I'm supposed to just assume that they weren't lying or being misleading or anything like that.
Can I finish?
You're the ones. You
I
guys are the
no,
ones
no,
who've been
no, I
cutting
said-
me
I
off.
One
said-
at a time. Hey,
I
don't
said-
make me order. There will be order.
Tommy,
I
y'all
made
been cutting me
committees and
Y'all been
style
cutting me
committees.
off.
One at a time. One at a
Tommy.
time. Jazari,
Tommy.
go ahead. Jazari, go
Tommy,
ahead.
if I'm a candidate and I knock on someone's door, I give them a pamphlet. I introduce myself. I'm running for this race. The election is this day. This is what I stand for. Obviously, you give your stump speech. You hand them the pamphlet that has your website where they can find more information about you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
At that point, it's on you to do the due diligence. Like, oh, I heard this is a person who's running. They told me the importance of what they're running for and what they want to do for my community. Maybe I should look into this. And
But
if
I
you
could- I
choose,
could- Go
and
ahead.
if
Sorry.
you choose
I thought you were done.
not to do that, then what more can the candidate do? What more can the candidate do if you have made contact, pass on your information, introduce yourself, told the voter where they can find more information about you, how they can contact you, get in contact with your campaign with any questions or things like that? it's. I want to give this example, but I know you're not gonna like. You're gonna say you hate this
Okay,
example, but
Desari. I want
but
him
it's
to
almost
answer
like
that.
school. But it's almost like school, right? You go to class. For instance, your professor in college, your professor gives you the information, but it's upon you to go do further research to understand stuff. But yeah, I land my
I
plane.
mean,
Okay, I want to
listen,
hear your side, man. I want to hear your side about it because you're saying Desari is like blaming the voters. I think he just has a different perspective about it, and I understand some of it is it's real. Yeah, like what can they do next?
okay, so like there are people who have spent their entire careers in voter education, right? And they're not going to agree with any of this. What they're going to tell you is, all right, a candidate came to your door, gave you a pamphlet, you saw a yard sign. Do you even know if that person's being honest? Are you informed about this person? No, they're still a relative stranger. All right, well, you got to go do your due diligence. Where? Well, you can look in the Lincoln Journal Star. Oh, do I have a subscription? No, I don't. Well, you can go to this website. Well, I don't have a computer. I'm not computer savvy, right? In voter education, people who work in that, they know that what they have to do to get people informed and showing up to the polls is making information so readily available. It's just you have no other choice. Like it's right there in front of you. It's delivered to you. It's lowering information barriers because every additional barrier of information that you remove, you get more and more people to the polls. That's what we know about voter education.
Okay, really quick for you guys who are watching, because I see people on YouTube and Facebook. Please comment your thoughts below, because at that point, like Tommy, I'm not sure what more. Because then again, oh, the information's readily available. But to your point, how do you know that information's real then? Because, like I said, a candidate can give you their pamphlet, all this information right to your face. This is who I am. This is what I want to do. But you're saying, how do you know that person's telling the truth or that person's lying? So, what about that person giving you their information from their campaign? How is that different than where you would get that information elsewhere? What
Well,
makes
first
the
of all,
information
no
that you get in the
politician is
paper
going to
more
tell you.
truthful?
If I may
No polit-
interrupt, well,
Yeah,
Right.
go
if
ahead, Jeremy.
I mean, I'm going to back to Jazari because, and I want to, I'll revisit what you said because I couldn't hear it. I had to leave for a little bit, but basically, you're asking what extra step could they do to make that message happen? Well, they got to revisit that voter. They got to make it real, and they got to make it human because Democrats have a problem being a paper pusher and robotic. And I'm not going to lie to you, we don't sell that message very well. So that's the
So I'm
point
not even
making.
sorry, I'm not even talking about Democrats. Let's talk. I'm talking even about like a more like conservative red district too. I'm talking about in any race, in any primary, anything.
Well, that's what Republicans have. They have charm, they have charisma, they have humanity. Even though it's not the right type, they know how to sell that message, and that's what it just goes plays in hand. Even some independents are highly robotic, or it's either or. It's how we choose those people. As us as a Democratic Party, we're not electing really people that can really carry our message, and it's conservative as well. Yeah, they're choosing people that can carry that message. It resonates with people in Nebraska because that's the only message they're hearing. Small time radio, nowhere. Do you see Democratic or independent small time radio other than public Nebraska radio?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tommy, my question to you is: you gave the example of, oh, I got to go to the website. I don't have this, or I don't have that, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. So how else are you supposed to get these people the information?
Well, I mean, first of all, you were asking like, how do you get these people to trust you if you're the one who's giving them the information? It's like that is one of the most important questions anybody in any voter education organization has to figure out. You have to figure out how to build trust so people can look at your information and trust you. So that really does take a lot of time and effort. But here's the thing, like voters are not as dumb as people are always making them out to be. They can
I
actually
never
sniff
said
out.
they were dumb.
No, not you. Other people. Sorry. They can actually sniff out bullshit better than people think, right? If you give them a pamphlet with all this flowery information, like a candidate sometimes gives you, they go, this person used a lot of words to say nothing, right? So if you're a third party and you're trying to be neutral and you're trying to educate people and giving them information, you don't build trust by telling them this is a fact. This is definitely it. You can trust us. No need for me to build any trust with you. I mean, it's about putting out something that just you know is trustworthy. It doesn't smell like bullshit. You know what I'm saying? I guess you don't. Sorry.
No,
I do. You got to be
I
real.
I get what you're saying, but how does that, like, how do you reach people? Because I gave you the examples and you said that wasn't enough. Door knocking, reaching people, face to face contact. It's still not enough.
Be yourself. Sometimes just being yourself and revisiting helps. And if you can't convince that person, I mean, what can you do?
Well, okay,
that's what I'm asking. What else is there? Because now this is when you end up with, you know, people in government who are making laws that maybe the majority of people don't agree with.
Most people don't revisit the opposing side, whether Democratic or independent. We don't revisit those voters. Do you know that? We only come up in the presidential time, and that's it. We don't revisit them on the midterms.
The only point I'm trying to make is elections are actually it's very complicated, and you have to take in a lot of information to actually be an informed voter. There's plenty of people who take in a lot of information and still don't really know know everything about what's on their ballot, right? It's actually a very high bar to become an informed voter. It's harder than you think. Now everybody's like you. Some people are single mothers working 3 jobs. Do they have time to look up all this information? I mean, I don't even know where to begin when it comes to figuring out the judicial retention elections. I don't know anything about those judges, and it's very hard information to find. So, I mean, it's just like, if something is so information dense and there's so much information barriers on it, why even bother? I'm already exhausted. I'm already working 2 or 3 jobs. Why even bother? You know, systems never helped me. That's what you have to deal with. That's the sentiment you have to deal with.
Okay, but then the other thing too, it's like, then what happens when there are things happening that you don't agree with that start affecting your life? Because at the end of the day, let's say you get a majority of a party majority, whatever the case may be, left or right, they start making laws and doing things that the majority of people don't agree with. It's the voters who put these people there.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a problem of people not paying attention, in my opinion, until it starts impacting their everyday life.
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't say like transgender people weren't paying attention until just now. I mean, there's a lot of people.
I'm not cherry picking an issue. I'm just talking about broadly speaking, because let me give you this example. When I went to South Dakota last summer, I had a conversation with some of my cousins and I told them, like, are you guys like into your legislature? Like, do you guys do that? And they're like, no, we don't feel like we need to do that because they're letting us be here in their country and we just need to keep our heads down and not get involved in anything. So we intentionally like tune that out.
Okay. Yep, I have some agreement with that, Jazari, and my family.
So what I'm saying, it's like, okay, well, when things start, like taxes start increasing or legislation starts getting passed that directly impacts you by people who are representing you that you probably could have, like, all I'm saying is, at the end of the day, our government is supposed to be of, by, and for the people. And if the people are not showing up to vote for the people who they want to represent them, what more can you do? If you're a candidate knocking on doors, you're making contact, giving information, you said that's still not enough. Oh, I still don't know this person. I don't know if they're telling me the truth. Okay, well, I don't have a computer. I can't do any research. So then at that point, like, whose fault is it? Who's to blame on that? Like, but what I'm saying is
that voter chose not to vote. That is the freedom of America.
And I understand that. But what I'm saying is there are also people who intentionally, like, avoid politics. They're just like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't care. Blah, 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 blase, blase. Have you any wool? And then we get into a situation where things start actually happening. I mean, we even saw it with like people searching, how can I take back my vote? Right? Like all of this kind of stuff after the presidential election. This is it. Like, it's final. Elections have consequences, like any which way you look at it. So it's one of those things to where it's like, this is it. It comes down to the people, who the people want in government. And if you choose not to exercise your right to vote and you end up in a situation where there are negative laws impacting you.
No, for sure. The only thing I'm saying is with my organization, when we were working on voter education this cycle, we had people contact us saying, I'm homebound. I don't have television. I don't have TV. All I have is a radio. I'm very confused about the ballot initiatives. I can't go anywhere. I can't go to the library. Can you please deliver me a voter guide? There are so many people out there that don't actually have access to information. They want to vote. They just don't know what to vote for, who to vote for, when to vote. And I know it might seem like second nature to us because we're freaks. Okay. We're doing a politics podcast here, but there are plenty of people out there that don't have the means or the information to go and vote. A lot of people are that way. It's true. I mean, go talk to people in voter education. They're not going to tell you, voters are lazy. They know voters aren't lazy. They know voters are pretty busy, actually. People are working very hard in this country, and it's just like,
I don't know what else to say. I mean, we have vote by mail, right?
That doesn't mean you understand what's on your ballot.
Right. And if I'm saying then I guess that's the end of the conversation, because what else can you do? Okay, you get the ballot, you still can't find the information about the ballot, then I guess there's nothing more.
There's not much you can and will ever be able to do.
In other states, they have statewide programs.
This is why Republicans are smart with the messaging. They chose topics that people can remember, short versions of topics that they can remember.
I'm just saying there is something else you can do. There are other states that have statewide voter guides.
That doesn't work. People throw them away.
Oh, really? Oregon throws it away, even though they have very high utilization rates. Even though if you took it away from them, they would be screaming for you to bring it back. Even though there's pretty high participation, every candidate participates in the statewide voter guide. It's a third rail there. Go talk to them. If their voter guide disappeared for the next election cycle, they've been doing it for over 100 years. There are other states that do very good job at getting people to the polls at much higher rates than us. And there are very interesting differences. They go about it different ways. They actually lower the information barriers. That's what you got to work on. There's no shaming voters to the polls. That's not how it's going to work.
I never said shaming voters to the polls. I said, I gave you my example. You said it's still not enough. I have nothing else to say.
I mean, we're saying, oh, this is your job. You got to do this. What happens if it starts impacting you? That sounds like finger wagging to me.
No, I'm just saying, it seems like you're making a... I gave you the point of okay, you're homebound. You have somebody come knock on your door, give you information, introduce themselves. Well, that's still not enough. Then, okay, what else is there?
That's not what that person was saying. That person...
No, that's what you said. No, you just said that. You said if someone comes knocking, I don't know if this person's lying to me. I don't know if
they didn't get knocked. Nobody knocked their door. The thing is most...
Guillermo, Guillermo, didn't I give that example?
I think you gave that example about knocking their door. But me and Jazari disagree on many about it. So I don't know. I just want to hear your perspective about it.
No, Guillermo,
real life people,
No, stop. What I said was if you are door knocking and you make voter contact, you give them your paper, your literature, you introduce yourself, tell them where they can find more information. You said that's still not enough. How do they know you're telling the truth? How do they know you're not lying to them?
Sure.
So then what more could you do then?
So here's the thing, Jazari. Most people don't get their door knocked. Lots of people. Most people do not get their door knocked. And it's because voters or candidates, they have data and they look at people who vote, right? And they prioritize a very small number of people who vote. These people who are homebound that I was talking about, nobody knocked their door. They were, even though they lived in Lincoln, Nebraska, very dense place.
Do you have data on that?
Do you want me to show you later this person who sent me this email?
I don't know that person. I don't know if that person's lying. It's the same thing you're saying.
Well,
but what I'm saying is I need to see, you're saying there are people who never get their door knocked. Who is this person who's telling you this?
What? I've worked in campaigns before, right?
Yeah, you can't get them all. I mean, example, Dan Quick. he did a great job, and he would post how many doors he went to every time. And I love that. Like, I went to this so many doors, and I still have this many people to knock on doors. And he would just count his people. That was a really big success of his campaign, even though politically we disagree a lot. So he did knock twice, and he would mention, I knocked on the same door twice, and it'd be like 100,000 people.
Okay, so there's about the same. Go ahead.
Who are these people who are homebound? Who are these people who only have a radio? Are these older voters?
Yes, they're usually older voters.
Older voters usually have higher.
I'm giving you one example. I thought that was allowed because it happens quite a lot. But I'm just telling you that, like, a candidate does not knock on. Okay, so let's say there's about 8 in any given district. Like, I've seen districts where only 8,000 people voted, even though they're equal population. And then I saw a district, the most I ever saw was 18,000 votes in a district, right? That's going to equate to like anywhere from, if you're in that 8,000 voter district, that's going to be at least 6,000 houses, right? And some of those houses, you're never going to make contact with anybody. A candidate will look at the information and see who is a high propensity voter. They're going to you. If you don't vote, if you don't know when to vote, or you never established a pattern of voting because it's not something you're born knowing how to do, those candidates are never going to come talk to you, right? If you're somebody who votes in every primary election, you are high up on that list. That's actually a really good piece of information to tell people who tell you that voting is useless and stuff like that. It's like, well, actually, if you're a consistent primary voting, you're very likely to get knocked on the door. And I noticed the difference when I started changing that. There's these little things, but in reality, most candidates do not knock on 50% of the doors. Not even close to 50%. That's just the reality. Most people don't get knocked on the doors, Jazari. That's just the truth. Like, a good portion of them don't. Of those 18,000 voters.
You need money. You need big time money for that.
Definitely money, and there are some exceptions. You have Christy Egger. She's the public defender. That's somebody who is a door knocking machine. I've never seen anybody knock so many doors in a cycle. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know she went out that crazy out loud. I know I helped the first 3 cycles. I didn't know how she worked this time.
Yeah, Christy Egger is the public defender. The reason why she upset a long-standing incumbent is because she knocked tens of thousands of doors, but she really is an outlier when it comes to that. So
all I'm saying is, we have elections every year, and like I don't know what else to do to get people to the polls. And you say like, oh, a voter guide, and it's just like, it could also be a thing too. Like, okay, well, how do people know your voter guide is legitimate? Like,
building trust.
There's always something. There's always something. So I guess all I'm saying is, there is only so much you can do.
Yeah, and we don't do anything. We barely do anything to help voters learn about the voting process. Nobody teaches you how to vote in high school. Nobody's taking you to the polls.
I'm not talking about going to the polls and learning how to vote. I'm talking about just like knowing who.
Nobody paid attention in government. Only I did.
That's actually a big deal. Like, that's why it's not, young people vote at low rates, not because they're apathetic. They vote at low rates because they've never done it before. And I know that seems like second nature to us.
No, they really hate. They feel like the system failed them.
I'm not pulling this out of thin air. I've been in voter education for years. When you don't know how to do something, you don't do it. People avoid the things they don't like. They don't want to learn. It's Tommy, scary to admit you don't know something.
Example, I ran into something. I asked somebody one time if they're a registered voter, and she was like, oh, I went to do the registration at the last minute. I was like, nah, I just pulled out. I didn't want to do it.
I just want to clarify. Are we allowed to pull like personal experiences out of thin air or not? Because I got just told I essentially that I couldn't do that.
But what I'm saying,
Blake's on.
At the end of the day, personal experiences, it is what it is. We're just not going to agree on this. We just aren't. And I feel like you're trying to get me. I feel like we're trying to get each other to see each other's point. I gave the best point that I could. Voter contact. Voter contact is what drives people to the polls, right?
And it barely happens. We know it barely happens. It's a fact.
I mean, and it's even things like let's look at bigger races. Let's look at like presidential races. Let's look at Senate races. You can't reach. It's literally impossible to have contact with all 800,000 people that you're supposed to represent in Congress.
Wait, sorry. Say that again. I was reading something.
I'm saying like it's literally humanly impossible to make contact and have an interaction with all 800,000 members that you would have to represent as a House member.
Yeah, but like federal elections are treated like Super Bowl events. Like, you know, your local races don't get that kind of coverage and that airwave sort of thing.
Okay, well, what about mayoral races? If you want to be the mayor of a city,
good luck. You need a lot of money. There's a lot to that conversation, but you're still not going to knock most of the doors. You're still not going to know most of the people. You're still not going to have a conversation at the door.
But all I'm saying is, it is just, honestly, just to be frank, it's complete bullshit to me for somebody to be just like, I don't know when the election is, or I don't know how to. I don't know any of this stuff. I don't know exactly what to do. I don't know how to go about even doing a single thing. Like, that is just, to me, in this hyper connected world where people are on social media, people have phones, all that kind of stuff. I mean, everyone has a smartphone. People get text messages. People, like, there is a way to get connected to stuff. This is not 2001, 2002, where people had flip phones, and it's just a different time. It's
how about personal experience.
They're not educated enough. Sorry, not all of them are educated on it.
But what I'm saying is, like, even I gave the example of, you know, you knock on a door, you hand your literature to the person and tell them how to get in contact.
That doesn't happen that much, though. God, this is frustrating. That doesn't happen a lot. Has Lyra never knocked your door? She's never knocked mine. I've voted in every primary city election for 10 years. I've never had a mayor or candidate knock my door.
Dan Quick never went to my door or my apartment complex.
Blake, yeah, that is definitely right, Blake. I had a really good teacher in government. Also, Blake, like, I don't even believe in gun control, but I would do things like enter a gun control bill in our little hypothetical government that we were running just to make people mad. It's kind of childish.
Tommy, at the end of the day, when you talk about voter education and all of that, like, you gave the example of, like, you don't know everything that's on your ballot, and then, oh, you're also homebound. You can't get to a library. You can't do this. You can't do that. At the end of the day, it's like, I don't know how to help those people. It is what it is at this point.
I took them a voter guide. And they knew who was on their ballot. They knew what the initiatives were. They knew all the information, the essential information about voting. That's what you do. And, like, I'm not pulling this out of thin air. I'm not an amateur. Yes, I am an amateur, but I work with people at the Bureau of Sociological Research on the university. They're the people that I consult with when it comes to voter education. Like, I'm learning this from them. Like, I know you don't want to listen to me, but it's true. Information density is a thing. People do check out after a certain point. It's a thing. People come from every different kind of educational background. We all have varying different IQs. And here's the thing. Everyone avoids learning new things after a certain point in life. We just know that. It's something I learned in math education courses when I was in college. Like, people,
not all of us took math education courses in college.
Yeah, I actually took that by accident. I wasn't supposed to. It didn't count towards my degree, and they had to make an exception for me. So that's a long story.
Look, I've been voting for all it is I've given my point. I can understand what you're saying, but it seems like you think what I'm saying is complete bullshit. So we'll just leave it at that.
I don't think it's bullshit. I just don't think you have anything to stand on. Look, Anna says it. Anna Sidlick. I've been voting for 30 years and never had an actual candidate knock on my door.
Okay, so a voter guide is just going to change everything, and that's going to skyrocket voter turnout.
There's plenty of stuff you have to do. You have to also do, like, you know, people who don't want to vote by mail. Well, how do they get to the polls if they're
but what I'm saying is that
you pick them up and take them to the polls.
A candidate cannot pick up people and take them to the polls. What
I'm not saying a candidate.
Okay, what I'm saying is there is only so much that you can do.
But we don't do anything. We don't do anything in terms of voter education.
Who is we?
Organizations, the state, whoever. There is nobody there's nobody out there doing the work that needs to be done to actually get people to the polls. Nobody's
So you mean to tell me every
organization,
organization, Civic Nebraska, all those people are doing nothing? What they're doing does not matter because it's not working. That's what you're saying.
That is exact. Yep, that's what I'm saying, Jazari.
That's what I'm getting. You're saying we don't do anything. You said we don't do anything.
Voter contact hardly ever happens. Like, I love League of Women Voters. Those people are my people. But here's the thing. When you make a guide that is wall-to-wall text and you leave it at a library, nobody's using it. And when you say, well, why do we need to mail it? It's because, and you don't understand the concept of universal access, then you don't understand that we're not actually doing effective things. When's the last time somebody from Civic Nebraska contacted you? Like, came to your door, talked to you, any of that stuff, sent you a piece of information? People don't, voter contact, whether from a candidate or from organizations, happens at a very, very low rate. There's lots of people who vote for a very long time and never hear from a candidate, and they never hear from an organization. That's how complicated voter education is. Oh man, it seems like everything gets bumping at like 6 o'clock when I'm having to walk out the door. Blake's here. We got to get you on a show, Blake, sometime. I want to pick your brain about some stuff.
At the end, it's just like, I'm looking at what we have in the legislature, what's coming down the pipeline, and it's just like, I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to say. Like I've said, I've rested my case, I guess. And
I still have to get some more data refined from the Bureau of Sociological Research from the university. But I mean, just the raw data shows us the people that got our guides voted at a rate of about 75%. So we don't know for sure what that means until we get some experts to refine that data. But hey, probably not a bad sign that the people that got our voter guides actually showed up at a high rate.
Tommy, Nebraska Dems send their registered voters a guide.
I understand that. It's a picture and a name, and that's it. And not to mention, I know some of those Democratic candidates, and let me tell you, not the best people.
Okay, so the goalpost is just going to continuously get moved. Like, Guillermo,
what they send is not a voter guide. What they send is not a voter guide. It's a picture and
Okay, Guillermo, can you kind of just, you've heard us both go at this for the last like 25 whatever minutes. Can you just give us your overall consensus of what you think this is?
Well, I mean, Jazari has some good points about the situation. It's like, what can you do next? But it's not like you're just pointing out the issues and what can we do next? It's like voter education. But again, it just goes back to going back to voters and revisiting. And we're not doing that. We don't have the power. We don't have the capacity. And that's where I'm at with it. I'm not blaming the voters. Some of it's the voters, and some of it, a lot has to do with the party. So, or independent candidate themselves. So I can't force a voter or blame a voter for not wanting to vote to a government that hasn't been there for them. So,
and I'm not blaming the voter. I'm just saying, you cannot force someone to the polls. And elections have consequences, and people know this. People know that when people get into power who maybe do the wrong things. There's tons of history on this. There's tons of examples of like regimes that have been propped up that have done extraordinary things through legal means, through democratic processes. And then it's kind of one of those things to where it's like, oh, I actually didn't know this is what they were going to do. This is not what we voted for. This is, I didn't actually turn up to vote because I didn't think this and that. It's just one of those things to where it's just like the comment of like, oh, give people rights to the polls. Like that, at some point, it's just like, you try to get people the information the best you can, and that's it. Like if there's no way to force somebody to the polls, and this is how we end up with the outcomes of elections are decided by voters. That's it. If you show up to vote,
when we are in power, we don't do what we're supposed to be doing for the working people. We have
I'm not no,
really
but
been
sorry to interrupt you.
that's our problem.
I'm not trying to focus on Democrats, okay? I'm talking
It's just
about
not Democrats, it's independents in general because most of the population's independent. We promise they have voted for us Democrats and we don't deliver. Independents as well. We don't deliver what they want when we're in power and have control of government. So they feel disingenuated by us. We're looked at as liars in the status quo. It's the same shit.
I think we're just we might be talking about two different topics here. But
All
No,
I'm
I don't
saying,
think so. I think it's just the same thing. It's like you're talking about why we're not voters aren't coming out to vote. Those are the reasons, and there's nothing you can do but show what we have to do. We have to make do what with government, and we have to deliver when we're in power.
I think we're just talking about this from a nonpartisan standpoint. Jazari
It
and I,
is
am I
in
right?
a nonpartisan. If
We're
it's
just
in the
talking about
legislature, nonpartisan or conservative, it doesn't matter. We're not delivering. Sometimes
listen,
Republicans don't deliver for the people, so there you
I talked to
go.
a senator today, and he said the makeup of the legislature is what the people wanted. The people decided how this turned out. That's how
Are you
people get in
sure there was
power.
no gerrymandering? I mean, Republicans were in power and they made sure things
So
were different, and I know that for a fact.
that's why I'm speaking at it from like a more nonpartisan way, because if you have two Republican candidates and one is more centrist and one is more like, you know, MAGA or whatever it is, and people voted for the more MAGA candidate, then that's who they sent. That's all I'm saying.
Because
It's like,
that's the message that was represented, and it would starts at the top and starts with Republican leadership. And it's not that I want to be partisan. You guys are painting me as a partisan situation, but that's where we are as America right now. As much as I want to be nonpartisan, the legislature, they chose a nonpartisan legislature. It's very partisan at this point.
Thanks, Kim. I try.
look,
Sorry, I'm having fun with the chat over here.
all I'm saying is, even from a different perspective, right? Like,
You know,
go to
Turtle.
school.
Sorry.
You go to school, right? You get the information from your teacher on whatever unit or whatever you're working on. You have to study and prepare for the test. That's on you. And there are different outcomes if you succeed or not. And that's kind of the same thing with just voters, right? Like, you get wins or you don't for whoever you're rooting for.
But
at the end of the day,
there's no
it's
incentive
done.
to do it until you can convince somebody there is a reason to do it. It's I'm sorry, it's a lot more complicated. Getting people to the polls is a lot more complicated than they should do their homework or whatever, you know? But
then, okay, you're switching the conversation now because you're saying doing their homework, there's more than being an educated voter get you to the polls.
What?
You just said there's more than doing your research to get people to the polls. So then what else is there to get people to the polls?
No, I'm saying you can't make it out to be like, oh, they should just do their homework. I'm saying it's much more to it than that. You know, it's convincing them they should even go to school. Like, that's if we're going with this analogy.
But then it's also like the example I gave, like somebody talks about issues and things like that, comes to your door, whatever, sends you a pamphlet, whatever. What I'm saying is there are people who truly ignore politics.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are. And at that point, what can you do to those people? Even if you make contact with them, they still don't care.
Well, you tried. What do you want from that? You can't plead to turn up.
That's exactly what I said at the beginning. You do what you can to make contact. If people are not interested, they don't want to turn out, then that's it. What more can you do?
This is the point I'm trying to make, that if you do analysis into voter education and voter turnout, you come to find that voter contact doesn't actually happen that much. Like, nobody, like whether it's a nonpartisan education or a candidate, most people are not getting talked to. That's the point I'm trying to make. Is it's like what I hear, and this is just based on the experience.
Right.
What I hear, just based on your experience, it sounds like we've tried nothing and we are all out of ideas. Like, most people don't actually get talked to about voter education. It just doesn't actually happen, and they don't know where to go because there's no great authority on it. You know, And
Yeah,
it takes a long
I
time
agree
to
with that.
get people practiced up when it comes to voting.
I think those issues are something that doesn't matter the party that needs to be addressed. Those are issues. You're saying this type of voter is not ever going to vote, and you're saying, well, this is why the voter is never going to vote, and this is why they're not voting. It's like it's different issues, but the same result. They're not voting, and so either party or independents need to figure out how to engage people, and that's something that maybe the state legislature needs to, make a study on, because if they are for the people.
You know what's very interesting about Republicans? They tend to be the ones that don't want to support to get low propensity voters out to the polls. But it actually turns out that low propensity voters, when they turn out, like when you manage to actually get them to turn out, they tend to vote conservative. They tend to vote more Republican. It's kind of ironic that Republicans are essentially, when they make it harder to vote, they're basically keeping the people that would vote for them at home. It's a fun little thing when you study voting trends and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's one talking point if you're in a red state, to say, listen, I know you don't want to expand voting access. However, when you do, you actually get more votes. Your party actually gets more votes. So, I mean, this is, yeah. There's so much knowledge.
Where are you going with this one, Tommy? I just don't. I was trying to understand what you're trying to tell me.
I'm just talking about when you lower the barriers to vote, it's just kind of a little fun fact that you learn in like voting education. When you lower the barriers to vote, more people vote, right? And those people who tend to be low propensity voters who actually turn out, they tend to vote Republican. But ironically, Republicans are the ones who typically, via policy, raise the barriers to vote. So, I mean, if you could be able to convince a Republican, hey, listen, turnout is great because more turnout tends to favor you, why don't you support expanding voting access? There is something going on in this chat.
I don't know. I look at it from the point of, seeing how the legislature is playing out and what it's shaping up to be. It's just like the voters sent them there. That's all I'm saying. The voters sent them there, and some people chose not to turn out and vote, or whatever the case may be. I just don't think that like there's so much that you can do to try to get somebody to come out and support you and to turn out to vote. And if they choose not to come out to vote, then you've done all you can do. And that just is what it is.
I mean, I think we can keep on
depends on the type of candidate. I'm not going to go off script. It just depends on the.
Hold on, wait. What'd you say?
I feel like we're talking in circles here, and I think we're talking past each other. You keep saying you've done everything you can, and I'm saying no. People have done barely anything they could to support voter education and lowering the barriers to voting.
I'm not talking about voter education. I'm just talking about if you are running for an. I'm talking about I guess it goes into that. Yeah. So if you, I gave the example of a paper. You're just saying everyone else's voter guides is ineffective because clearly it's not doing enough.
No, I'm saying because it's not accessible. It's some of their guides, they focus on a certain area, so it's not all encompassing. I mean, you can leave voter guides at the library. That doesn't mean you're going to have a high utilization rate. And we just know from our friends in Oregon and Washington, you get a high utilization rate by mailing it directly to people. All the information in one place sent to you, not you having to go find the information in several different places.
I agree with that. That Oregon is a huge barrier. Different habits.
But so, like, what about mailers that get sent out to people?
What kind of mailers? Political mailers and campaigns? Yeah,
sure.
It might be nice, fun graphic of a candidate with him and his family talking about how he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Yeah, it doesn't really convince me though. Like,
okay, well then that's what I
learn from that.
Okay, so you get a mailer from two different candidates running, and they have their information, their website on there.
Okay,
Are
but
you not?
these
Are you
people,
not gonna? Are you
do
not
you
gonna
think
take the
these
extra step to look into that?
do you think that these people are not biased, that they're just telling you everything about them that you need to know? Look, no, if I go to a candidate website, he's not going to tell me things about him that would be good to know, but bad for him,
But
you
then that
know.
goes into like Google the person's name. Everybody Googles.
Okay, well, you just got to have a computer and be tech savvy. That's all. Everybody else,
Or
you're
have a
screwed. But,
phone.
okay, well, I know plenty of people that don't have phones, right?
So what
Right.
more can you do at
Especially
that?
old people.
Okay, so
I'm saying,
then
I'm telling you, it's what Oregon and Washington does. You take a comprehensive voter guide and you mail it to people.
okay, but
They
then
throw
again,
that in
how
the
do they
trash,
know?
Tommy. They throw it in the
That's what I'm
trash.
saying. So like, how
They
do people
don't.
know?
They have. I'm not pulling this out of thin air. They have numbers. You can go check them out to look at their utilization rates. They do. They don't do this on a whim and just because they think it's a good idea. They actually have. I mean, they're spending millions and millions of dollars every
Right, but
election cycle for this.
I get voter guides from different. Different organizations do send out voter guides too.
Yeah, they don't mail them
Tommy,
out. I mean,
Tommy.
I was involved. I tried convincing organizations locally to mail voters, and they said, "No, we don't need to mail them. We just have them
Tommy.
online."
Tommy, I'm just saying that I gave the example, and I'm going to go back to it, that there are some people who are simply not interested in politics.
And there are a lot more people who would vote if you could lower the barriers. I mean, it's happening in other states. Like, I'm not trying to pull this out of thin air, man.
Okay,
There
you're
are
right.
plenty of people.
I rest my case. You're right.
People.
You are correct. I'm wrong. You're correct.
There are plenty of people who will never vote, but
I just said you're right.
A lot more people. There are a lot more people who will vote if you can help lower the barriers and insist them in actually learning about the process. That's the way it works.
Sure. You're right. I'm wrong.
All right.
Sorry.
All right, man. I got to get going. I got to go pick my kid up.